Okay, interview prep. Let's get started. So keep in mind, this slide is all about example questions for you to ask in an interview. Okay, so kind of picture yourself like all nicely dressed, professional, and you're sitting across from an interviewer and they say, hey, do you have any questions for me? These would be some great questions to ask. How much time is allocated for paperwork versus face-to-face client contact hours? So you're kind of wanting to get an idea how many, like what's a general caseload? How many clients would I be seeing every week? And do I have, and how much time is allocated for documentation? What does supervision look like here? Is it individual? Is it triadic? Is it group? You might not really care at this point, but it's helpful to know. What is the training process like before seeing clients? So asking kind of like how, what kind of training is provided? That's a great question to ask. How will this training experience prepare me for my career? Right? So like if you're working with a specific population, you can ask them how it's been able, have the experience can enable you to move forward with working with that population, or, if you move on to a different population, how the skills can transfer. Excuse me, how many clients am I expected to see? How many hours per week? So it's kind of similar to the first question. And what types of therapy will I be providing? Individual, group, family, couples? That's a great question. And lastly, what are the strengths of the site? And what are some areas of improvement at the site? What are what are some typical challenges that trainees face here at the site? If you ask any of these questions, you're going to seem top notch. So write these down, kind of get used to them and pull them out at the end of the interview. Okay, so these are some example interview questions to ask in your interview. Continued. Okay, so we're going to keep going. So we're giving you lots of examples. So you're still in the interview. They say, do you have any questions for me? You can ask, are there any financial expectations? Do I have to pay for things like supervision, for training? You can ask that question because it's important to know, right, before signing on. What days and times are required for me to be on site? This is important, especially if you have another job or your classes are at a certain time. What challenges do new trainees typically face at the center? That's kind of a repeat from before. What qualities are you looking for in a trainee? Questions about the population they serve. Share about your experience with cultural humility. This could be something that you ask the site, how they, include diversity and how they train on cultural humility. You can ask that. And then you can ask the supervisor/interviewer how they support a trainee during a client crisis. I think this is probably the most important question. If I were to be in an interview at this point in my career, I would need to know how the supervisor supports a trainee during a client crisis. This is really important. You want to see how they answer it. So you don't have to ask all these questions, obviously, right? And a lot of them might be answered on the website. So I highly recommend you do your research before. You don't want to ask a question that's sort of, out there on their website. So make sure that it's not already been answered and that you're actually genuinely wondering, right? So that's important. Okay, so let's shift gears. Now you're starting the interview, and these are some example questions for you to practice answering. So these are questions that the interviewer might ask you. What are your strengths and areas of improvement? And this is pretty general, right? So you want to kind of have that answer ready to go. So you can practice with your peers, you can practice in class, with your family, you can watch some videos on what are some good things to say to kind of help you get started and figure out what are your unique strengths. Okay, share about your experience with cultural humility and maybe working with diversity. So that's important. Oh, that's a repeat. Strengths and challenges. Hey, they might ask it twice. No, I'm kidding. Have you had your own personal therapy? Now, I haven't been asked this in an interview before, so you might be asked it. Either way, it's okay if you haven't, and it's okay if you have. I mean, this is something that you might be asked, so we just want to prepare you. But don't worry if you haven't. You can. That's not going to deter you from getting the position. Describe your previous work experience and make sure in this question that you really highlight any relevant clinical skills, right? So we talked about all those relevant clinical skills that are outlined in your action plan, like customer service, documentation management, people skills. Like you really want to highlight that stuff when you talk about your work experience, even if it has nothing to do with clinical work. There's the transferable skills, right? Okay. Next, questions to ask yourself during the interview process to really see if this is the right site for you. So you're kind of in the interview, you're going to be kind of asking yourself these things, and then post-interview, you're going to kind of assess, like, okay, how did that interview go? Did I like the site? Did I like the supervisor? So remember that an interview at a practicum site is more like an information exchange rather than a one-way evaluation. So do you like the company culture after you experienced, talking with your interviewer? Are you driven by their mission? You really want to know the mission before you get into the interview. And that's something you can look up on their website. Do you align with their values in the mission? Is this population at the site a community you want to serve? And now this kind of tricky because some students end up working with clients they never thought they'd work with, right? And so I think that instead of asking, do I want to serve? Ask yourself, are you open? Are you open to serving them? Are you open to supporting this community, this population? And remembering that they're very transferable skills. Even if it's not maybe a population you're super, super passionate about, you can learn a ton and it can set you the foundation for your clinical skills and for working with the people that you work with in the future. So ask yourself, am I open to it? And I hope that you are. We should all be really open to any population that we see. Okay, some extra interview tips. Have questions post-interview. Check out our action step number 5 for additional info. So action step number 5 is all about interview tips. So please check that out. It's in your Tavera assignments. Okay, this is a group interview tip. So let me go back. So if any of you have been in a group interview, it's a little bit intimidating, right? Because you got the other applicants in the room with you and they're answering the questions. So one way to navigate a group interview is to comment, agree, echo, if you agree, right? If you do, echo or jump off of a fellow interviewee's responses. And what this does is it shows that you're listening and you're able to interact well with others and bounce off of each other's ideas. So it also demonstrates you're a team player, and it gives the interview a sneak peek into how you would engage in group supervision. So that could be something that you really want to try out. Like, oh, hey, yeah, I really agree with so-and-so. I just wanted to jump off of that. That's huge, right? It shows that you're listening to all these great things. Okay, and lastly, another great tip is follow up, follow up, follow up. Make sure you write a thank you email, right? This is really important. It might seem old-fashioned, but it goes a super long way. Trust me. A thank you note and a check-in, right? If you haven't heard back in a week or 2 weeks, check in. Say, hey, I just, wanting to check in about where I am in the process. Really looking forward to hearing from you. Simple email takes a couple minutes, and I think that would really go a long way. Shows that you're interested. Remember, you got this. And apply, and apply. Okay, apply as much as you possibly can. And remember, we're here for support. So thanks for watching, and tune in next week for more.